Sarah Chen's cheek was still burning from the slap when she heard the scrape of leather boots on the tile floor. Ethan Holloway, 18 years old, trust fund baby. Standing there with his hands still raised, didn't even see them coming. The 7 men in Hells Angels vests had been finishing their coffee in the corner booth, had been minding their own business. But Chains, the chapter president, he'd watched this kid strike a woman half his size for bringing the wrong temperature steak. And in the next 60 seconds, this spoiled rich boy was about to learn that some things, respect, dignity, basic human decency, those things can't be bought. Not here, not today. Before we dive into this story, if you've ever felt invisible at work, if you've ever been disrespected and had no one stand up for you, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is for everyone who shows up with dignity, no matter what they face. And drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We want to see how far Sarah's story travels. The morning had started normal enough. Sarah clocked in at Lou's Steakhouse at 4:30, same as she'd done for 9 years straight. Her hands moved through the opening routine without thinking, rolling silverware, filling salt shakers, brewing the first pot of coffee that would get her through until the lunch rush hit. "You're here early again." Lou Martinez stood in the kitchen doorway, wiping his hands on his apron. 62 years old, owned this place for 30 years, and he knew his staff better than most people knew their own families. Couldn't sleep. Sarah tied her apron, checked her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. Dark circles under her eyes. When had those gotten so deep? Mind was racing. Emma's surgery is Monday, right? Monday morning, 7 a.m. Her daughter's name caught in her throat the way it had been doing for weeks now. "They need the final payment by Friday. $3,400. Lou's face softened. "Sarah, I told you. I'm not borrowing from you, Lou. You've done enough." She grabbed her order pad, shoved it in her apron pocket. "I'll make it. Weekend tips are always good. I just need every table I can get." What she didn't say, what Lou already knew, was that Emma had been waiting for this heart surgery for 8 months. 8 months of watching her 15-year-old daughter get weaker. 8 months of rationing medications and skipping her own meals to afford her daughters. 8 months of working double shifts and coming home too exhausted to cry. The morning rush came and went. Regulars who knew Sarah by name, who asked about Emma, who tipped extra when they could. By 11 o'clock, her feet already ached, but her tips jar was looking better than yesterday. Maybe she'd make it. Maybe Friday would come and she'd have enough. "Sarah, table 12 needs water." She grabbed a pitcher, headed toward the corner booth where 7 men in leather vests sat spread across 2 tables they'd pushed together. Hells Angels. She'd seen them before, rolling through town on charity rides, raising money for children's hospitals and veteran causes. Lou knew their chapter president had told her once they were good people, despite what the patches might make strangers think. Water for everyone. She started filling glasses. The man at the head of the table looked up. Gray beard, weathered face, eyes that had seen things most people only read about. The patch on his vest said Chains and President. "Coffee too, if you've got it fresh." His voice was gravel and kindness mixed together. "Just brewed a new pot. Be right back." When she returned with the coffee, Chains nodded his thanks. "Your daughter doing okay? Lou mentioned she's got surgery coming up." Sarah nearly dropped the pot. "You know Lou." 30 years. He was serving me burgers when this place was half the size. Chains took his coffee black, waved off the cream. "Lou's good people. So, are you from what he says?" "I'm just doing my job." "Nah." The man beside Chains spoke up. His vest said, "Wrench." "People who say that don't know what good service looks like. You remember I take cream without asking. That's caring about details." She smiled, felt it reach her eyes for the first time that morning. "Thank you." "No, thank you." Chains raised his cup. "We appreciate people who show up, do the work right, treat folks with respect. World needs more of that." She left their table feeling lighter somehow, lighter than she'd felt in weeks. Then the BMW pulled into the parking lot. Sarah watched through the window as it took up 2 spaces angled carelessly across the lines, like rules were suggestions for other people. The driver's door opened and a young man stepped out. Designer. Everything phone already glued to his hand, moving with that particular arrogance that comes from never hearing the word no and meaning it. He walked in like he was interrupting his day to grace this establishment with his presence. Sarah grabbed a menu, put on her professional smile, the one she wore even when her feet screamed and her back ached and all she wanted was to sit down for 5 minutes. Good afternoon, welcome to Lou's. He didn't look up from his phone, just slid into a booth by the window and kept scrolling. Can I start you with something to drink? Water, no ice, lemon on the side, not in the water. Still didn't look up. And I need a few minutes. Of course, I'll be right back. In the kitchen, Lou was plating a ribeye. That's the Holloway kid, isn't it? You know him. Know of him. Richard Holloway's son. Tech billionaire. Kid's been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Lou shook his head. Expelled from 2 schools. DUI charges that disappeared. Father throws money at everything. Great. Sarah filled a glass with water, cut a lemon wedge, placed it carefully on the rim. Just what I need today. When she returned the young man Ethan she'd heard Lou say finally looked up. His eyes swept over her the way you'd look at furniture, assessing value, finding it lacking. You ready to order? What's good here? The ribeye is our signature. We also have a great fillet. Does the chef know how to cook a proper steak? He said it like he was testing her, like this was a game he'd played before and always won. Sarah kept her smile. Our chef has been cooking for 35 years. People drive 2 hours for his steaks. Fine. Ribeye. 16 ounces. Medium rare, and I mean actual medium rare, not medium. Warm red center. If it's even slightly over, I'm sending it back. He handed her the menu without looking at her. Asparagus, no butter. And bring me the good scotch, not the well stuff. I'll need to see ID for... Do you know who I am? Now he looked at her. Really looked at her. And the contempt in his eyes made something cold settle in her stomach. My father owns half this town. I'm 18. Get me the scotch. I'm sorry, but I need to see... Fine. Forget it. Just bring the steak. And don't screw it up. She walked back to the kitchen on legs that felt shaky. 9 years. 9 years of serving entitled customers, of swallowing pride, of smiling through disrespect. And she'd never let it break her. But today, with Emma's surgery looming and her bank account 3,000 short, and her body running on 4 hours of sleep, something felt different, fragile. You okay? Lou was watching her. I'm fine. Just need to put in an order. The steak came out perfect. Lou himself had cooked it the way he did when he knew a customer might be difficult. Medium rare, warm red center, asparagus grilled exactly right. Sarah carried it to Ethan's table with both hands, set it down carefully. He cut into it immediately. Didn't say thank you, didn't acknowledge the effort, just cut, examined, and his face twisted into disgust. This is medium rare to you. Sir, the chef. This is medium. I specifically said medium rare. He dropped his fork. It clattered against the plate, loud, intentional. People at nearby tables turned to look. Do you not understand English? Or are you just incompetent? Heat flooded her face. I'm sorry if it's not to your... Sorry doesn't fix it. Take this back. Tell your chef to cook it right this time. She reached for the plate, hands trembling now. Trembling with exhaustion and humiliation and the weight of every terrible thing that had been pressing down on her for months. And if it comes back wrong again, I'm not paying for it. I understand, sir. Do you... He leaned back loud enough now that half the restaurant was watching. Because you seem pretty useless at basic tasks. Is this really the best you can do? This job? Something cracked inside her. Small, quiet, but definite. I'll get you a new steak. You know what? Forget it. He pushed the plate away. I've lost my appetite. Bring me the check. But you didn't even... Did I stutter the check? Now. She turned, made it 3 steps. And next time, maybe try actually listening when someone orders. She stopped, turned back. I did listen, sir. I put in exactly what you... That's when he threw it. the water glass, full. It hit her chest, soaked through her uniform, ice cubes scattering across the floor. The restaurant went silent. Sarah stood there, water dripping from her shirt, her apron pooling at her feet. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what had just happened. Ethan smiled. Actually smiled. Oops, maybe you should watch where you're standing. Wow. His friends, 3 other young men she hadn't noticed before sitting at the next table over, they laughed. Like this was entertainment. Like she was entertainment. She found her voice, found it shaking. You did that on purpose. Prove it. He was enjoying this. She could see it in his eyes. The power, the control. Or maybe you're just clumsy. Seems like something you'd be. I need you to leave. I need you to bring me a new drink, since you spilled mine. I didn't spill. Are you calling me a liar? He stood up now, 6 feet tall, looking down at her, using his height the way he'd been using his money, as a weapon. In front of all these witnesses, Lou was coming from the kitchen. She could see him in her peripheral vision, but everything felt distant now, underwater, like she was watching this happen to someone else. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to what? Ethan turned to Lou. Ask me to accept terrible service. Ask me to pretend this waitress didn't ruin my lunch. My father donates $50,000 a year to this town. You want to lose that because you hired someone incompetent. Nobody's incompetent here. Lou's voice was steady, calm, the kind of calm that comes before storms. But you need to leave, now. Or what? That's when Ethan turned back to Sarah. And maybe it was the audience watching. Maybe it was the power he felt with his friends there. Maybe it was just who he'd always been, and finally the mask slipped all the way off. He raised his hand. You need to learn. The slap echoed. Sarah's head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across her cheek. Bright, sharp, real. For a second, nobody moved. The entire restaurant frozen in that moment. Sarah's hand went to her face, felt the heat already spreading, the sting that meant this was real. This had actually happened. This wasn't a nightmare she could wake up from. Ethan lowered his hand slowly, looked at his palm like he was surprised by what it had done. That's what you get for tomorrow, son. The voice came from behind him, deep, quiet, terrifying in its steadiness. Ethan turned. Chains stood there, 6'3", 240 pounds, 50 years of living written in the lines on his face. And behind him, 6 more men in Hell's Angels vests, standing in formation like they'd practiced this. Like they'd been waiting their whole lives for this exact moment. You just put your hands on her. Chains wasn't asking, wasn't questioning, just stating fact. In front of me, in front of my brothers, in a place we respect. This isn't your business. Ethan's voice had changed. Thinner now, uncertain. I was just what hitting women chains took one step forward, just one. But Ethan stepped back like he'd been shoved. That what they teach you at rich kids' school? She was being disrespectful and No, the word cut through the air. Final. What you're going to do is apologize. Then you're going to sit down, and then you're going to wait right here while we figure out what happens next. You can't tell me what to. Chains didn't move, didn't raise his voice, didn't do anything except exist in that space with absolute certainty of who he was and what was right. We can do this easy or we can do this hard, your choice. But you're not leaving until this is settled. Ethan looked around. His friends had gone quiet. The other diners were recording on their phones. Lou stood with his arms crossed. And Sarah was still standing there with her hand on her cheek, tears running down her face, her uniform soaked, her dignity shattered. Fine. Ethan's jaw clenched. I'm sorry. Happy? No. Chains looked at Sarah. Ma'am, you okay? She couldn't speak, could only shake her head. That's what I thought. Chains turned back to Ethan. Sit down. Now. You can't make me. Wrench appeared at Chain's left shoulder, Doc at his right, 4 more brothers behind them. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. Just standing there in their leather vests with their decades of life experience and their brotherhood code that said, some things don't get tolerated. Ever. Ethan sat. Lou, you call the cops yet? Chains didn't turn around. Already did. Lou's voice was tight. They're 5 minutes out. Good. Chains pulled out a chair across from Ethan. Sat down like he had all day. We're going to wait right here. All of us. And we're going to have ourselves a conversation about respect. Sarah's legs gave out. She didn't fall. Doc caught her, guided her to a chair, his hands gentle, despite the skull rings and the tattoos. You're okay, he said quietly. We got you now. And somehow those 4 words, we got you now, they broke through the shock. Sarah started crying. Really crying. 9 years of holding it together, of being professional, of taking whatever got thrown at her, literal and figurative, and she just broke. Lou brought her water, brought her a clean towel, knelt beside her chair. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to cause... Sarah. Lou's voice was firm. You didn't cause anything, you hear me? This isn't on you. Across the room, Ethan's phone buzzed. He looked at it, then at Chains. My father's calling. Let it ring. Chains folded his hands on the table. He'll find out soon enough. You don't understand who you're messing with. No, son. Chains leaned forward. You don't understand who you just messed with. That woman you hit, Sarah Chen. Single mother. Works 2 jobs to pay for her daughter's heart surgery. Shows up every day with a smile even though her feet hurt and her back aches and she's scared out of her mind about whether she'll have enough money by Friday to save her kid's life. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. And you know what she did when you were rude to her, when you disrespected her? She stayed professional, stayed kind, because that's who she is. Chain's voice never rose, never wavered. That's character. That's strength. And you just tried to break it because you could. Because nobody's ever told you no. Because you thought there wouldn't be consequences. There won't be. Ethan's phone kept buzzing. My father. Your father can't fix this. Wrench spoke up now. Whole restaurant saw it. Half of them recorded it. You're on video, kid, hitting a woman. No lawyer makes that disappear. Sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Ethan's face drained of color. Wait. We can work this out. I can pay her, whatever she needs for the surgery. You think this is about money? Sarah's voice cut through. Hoarse. Raw. But steady. She stood up, walked over to their table, looked down at this kid who'd just humiliated her. You think you can buy your way out of who you are? I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Her cheek was swelling now, red mark in the shape of his palm. You meant every word, every look, every bit of contempt. You meant all of it. The police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing, no sirens now. Ethan stood. I want my lawyer. Sit down. Chains didn't move. You're not going anywhere until they're ready for you. 2 officers walked in. Young guys, both of them looking uncertain when they saw the Hells Angels vests. But Lou went to meet them, started explaining. Sarah watched Ethan's face as understanding dawned. Real understanding. That this wasn't going away. That Daddy's money might not save him this time. That consequences were real and they were happening right now. Ma'am, one of the officers approached her. I'm Officer Rodriguez. Can you tell me what happened? She told him. Everything. Her voice shaking but clear. And when she finished, when she described the slap, she watched Ethan flinch like she'd hit him back. We've got multiple witness videos, Lou added. Security cameras too. It's all recorded. Officer Rodriguez nodded, turned to Ethan. Sir, I need you to stand up and put your hands behind your back. What? No, I'm not. Ethan looked at his friends. They were already edging toward the door. You can't arrest me. Your father isn't here, and you just committed assault in front of 20 witnesses. The handcuffs clicked. You have the right to remain silent. Sarah watched them lead him out. Watched this kid who'd been so sure of his power, so certain of his immunity, stumble through the door in handcuffs while people filmed on their phones. Chains stood beside her. Didn't say anything. Just stood there, present, solid. Thank you, she whispered. Nothing to thank me for. That's just what you do when you see someone getting hurt. He paused. Your daughter. Your, Emma. When's the surgery? Monday, but I don't have... How much are you short? I can't accept. I didn't ask if you could accept. I asked how much you're short. She swallowed hard. $3,400. Chains turned to his brothers. Didn't say a word. Just looked at them. Wrench pulled out his wallet. I got 500. Doc nodded. Same here. One by one, the men reached into their pockets. Cash. Credit cards handed to Lou to run donations. Within 5 minutes, they'd raised $4,000. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, could only watch as these strangers, these men she'd served coffee to an hour ago, made her daughter's surgery possible. This is too much, I can't. Yes, you can. Chains pressed the cash into her hands. And you will, because Emma needs that surgery, and because you've been fighting alone long enough. The tears came again. Different ones now. Not from pain or humiliation, from something else. Something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank us. Just be there for your daughter Monday morning. Be there and know that the world's got more good people in it than bad ones. Sometimes you just gotta wait for them to show up. Lou brought coffee, brought food, insisted everyone eat. The brothers settled back at their table, the tension easing, conversation flowing like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just changed someone's life. Like this was just what people did. Sarah's phone buzzed. Text from Emma. Mom, I love you. Don't worry about the money. I'm okay either way. She typed back with shaking hands. We got it, baby. We got it. Surgery is happening. I love you so much. 3 dots appeared. Then, how Sarah looked across the room at 7 men in leather vests laughing over coffee and pie. Angels, baby. Literal angels. Outside, more police cars had arrived. Sarah could see them through the window taking statements from witnesses. One of Ethan's friends was crying. The others looked pale, scared. Good. Let them be scared. Let them understand that actions have consequences. Let them learn that money doesn't buy immunity from being a decent human being. Officer Rodriguez came back inside. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come down to the station tomorrow, give a formal statement, probably press charges. Will he... She touched her cheek, still stinging. Will anything actually happen to him? His father's already called the station 4 times, called the mayor, called everyone he's got on speed dial. Rodriguez smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Doesn't matter. We got video. We got witnesses. We got you. This one's not going away. Chain stood. She needs representation. Someone who won't be intimidated by money. You know someone? Rodriguez asked. I know a lot of people. Civil rights lawyers. People who take cases like this pro bono just because it's right. He looked at Sarah. If you want help, we'll make sure you get it. I just want him to understand he can't do this. Can't treat people like they're nothing. He's going to understand. Chain's voice was certain, final. One way or another, that kid's going to learn. Today was just the first lesson. Sarah's phone kept buzzing. Emma calling now. She stepped outside to answer. Walked to the edge of the parking lot where the air was cooler and she could breathe. Mom, what happened? Mrs. Peterson from downstairs said she saw something on Facebook about Lou's and... I'm okay, baby, I promise. You're crying, I can hear it. Happy tears, confused tears, overwhelmed tears. But I'm okay. She looked back at the restaurant, saw Chains through the window talking to Lou, saw the brotherhood gathered around their table like guardians. Some good people showed up today, Emma. Really good people. The money for the surgery. We have it. It's handled. Emma was quiet for a long moment. How, Mom? I'll tell you everything tonight, but right now I just need you to rest. Take your medicine and know that Monday morning you're getting that surgery. You're going to be okay. Mom, I love you more than anything in this world. You know that, right? I know. I love you too. Sarah hung up. Stood there in the parking lot of Lou's Steakhouse, her uniform still damp, her cheek still throbbing, her hands full of cash from strangers who'd become something more. The BMW was being towed. She watched it go, chrome and leather and expensive machinery being hauled away like the trash it represented. Chains came outside, offered her a cigarette. She didn't smoke, but took it anyway. Let him light it. Let the smoke fill her lungs and burn and remind her she was alive. She was here. She'd survived. "You ever have one of those days," she said quietly, "where everything goes so wrong and then somehow ends up right? More than you'd think." He exhaled smoke toward the sky. Life's got a funny way of balancing things out. Just takes the right people being in the right place. You didn't have to do any of this. Yeah, we did. He looked at her. Really looked at her. The way people rarely did. Like she mattered. Like she was visible. "You know what my mother did for work?" "No." "Waitress. 32 years at a truck stop in Memphis. Worked herself to death serving people who barely saw her. Died of a heart attack at 56, collapsed right there behind the counter." His voice was steady, but something old and painful lived in it. "I was 17, helpless, couldn't protect her then. Couldn't make people see her as human instead of just someone who brought them eggs. I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just know that when I saw that kid hit you, when I saw him look at you like you were nothing, I saw every person who ever treated my mother like that. And I decided a long time ago that if I ever got the chance, I'd stand up. I'd make it right. For her. For everyone like her. For everyone like you." Sarah wiped her eyes. The cigarette was burning down, forgotten between her fingers. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." He stubbed out his cigarette. "Come on, let's get you back inside. You've got friends waiting." Friends. When had she last had those? They walked back into Lou's together. The afternoon shift was starting, new customers filtering in who didn't know what had happened. Life moving forward the way it always did. Relentless. Indifferent. But at table 12, the brotherhood waited. And when Sarah approached, Wrench pulled out a chair. "Sit. Eat something. You've earned a break." "I should be working." "Sarah." Lou appeared with a plate of food. "You're done for today. Go home. Be with Emma. Come back tomorrow if you want. Or take the weekend. Whatever you need. But I need the tips. Already handled." He set down an envelope. "Today's tips plus what the customers collected when they heard about Emma. About 300 more." The math didn't work. The numbers didn't make sense. $4,700 total when she'd needed $3,400. Emma's surgery covered, with money left over for recovery, for medicine, for breathing room she hadn't had in 8 months. This can't be real. It's real. Chains raised his coffee cup. "Good things happen to good people, Sarah. Sometimes you just gotta wait for them to catch up." She sat, she ate. She listened to these men, these strangers who weren't strangers anymore, tell stories about their rides, their charity work, their families. Normal people. Good people. People who'd chosen to stand up when standing up mattered. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Sarah Chen felt something other than exhaustion and fear. She felt seen. She felt valued. She felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Sarah was halfway home when her phone started exploding. Texts, calls, notifications flooding in so fast her phone vibrated continuously in her cup holder. She pulled over into a gas station parking lot, hands shaking as she unlocked the screen. 43 missed calls. 117 text messages. Her Facebook blowing up with tags and shares and comments she couldn't even begin to process. The first video had 17,000 views already. She clicked it, watched herself get slapped, watched her head snap to the side, watched Ethan's face smug, entitled, certain of his immunity, then watched Chains stand up, watched the brotherhood form that wall of leather and solidarity. The comments section was on fire. "Who is this woman? Someone start a GoFundMe. Those bikers are heroes. Rich kid needs to rot. I worked as a waitress for 10 years. This made me cry. Justice. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello, Mrs. Chen. This is Valerie Rost from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about the incident at Lou's Steakhouse this afternoon. Are you available? Sarah hung up. It rang again immediately. Different number. This is Marcus Webb from the Associated Press. We're running a story about... She turned her phone off, sat there in her car with the engine running and the AC blasting and tried to remember how to breathe. This wasn't supposed to happen. The slap, the humiliation, the moment of her life falling apart, that was supposed to stay small. Local. Something she'd process privately and move past. Not this. Not the entire internet watching her worst moment. Not strangers dissecting her pain for entertainment. She turned the car around, drove back to Lou's. Found Chains still there, sitting at the counter now talking quietly with Lou. It's everywhere. Her voice came out strangled. The video. It's everywhere. Chains looked at his own phone, scrolled. His expression darkened. 300,000 views now. He set the phone down. Going viral. I didn't want this. I just wanted... What had she wanted? Justice, dignity. For Ethan to understand he couldn't treat people like dirt. I wanted him to apologize and leave, and that's it. I didn't want to be famous for getting hit. Lou poured her coffee without asking. Added cream the way she liked it. Set it in front of her with steady hands. Too late for that now. Wrench spoke up from table 12. The Brotherhood hadn't left yet. Still there like guardians who'd taken root. But maybe that's not a bad thing. How is this not bad? Sarah's hands wrapped around the mug. Hot. Grounding. Real. Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to see me at my weakest moment. Emma's going to see her mother getting slapped, and Emma's going to see her mother standing up. Chains interrupted. Firm, but not unkind. She's going to see you refuse to be broken. She's going to see good people rally around you. That's the story, Sarah. Not the slap. What came after? Her phone still off, sat on the counter like a bomb waiting to detonate. They're going to want interviews. They're going to pick apart every detail of my life, my finances, my daughter's medical history, everything. So let them. Doc leaned back in his booth. You got nothing to hide. Single mother working her ass off to save her kid. That's the American dream in action. Let people see it. I'm not a symbol. I'm just what? Just a woman who shows up every day with dignity. Just someone who stayed professional even when that punk was treating you like garbage. Chains shook his head. You're exactly the symbol people need right now. Before Sarah could respond, the door opened. A man in a $1,500 suit walked in. Late 50s steel gray hair face that belonged on billboards and campaign posters. Sarah recognized him immediately from the news, from the magazines, from the life Ethan had been born into. Richard Holloway, tech billionaire, power broker, a man who'd built an empire and believed money solved everything. The restaurant went silent. Richard's eyes found Sarah, assessed her the way his son had, finding value, calculating worth, determining price. Mrs. Chen. Not a question, a statement, like he'd done his research in the 2 hours since his son's arrest. Mr. Holloway. He approached the counter, didn't sit, stood there in his designer suit and his Italian shoes and his certainty that this conversation would end the way he wanted it to. I apologize for my son's behavior. It was unacceptable. The words were practiced, smooth, meaningless. I'd like to make this right. Sarah said nothing. I understand your daughter needs surgery. Heart condition correct Monday morning at St. Catherine's. Ice flooded her veins. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things. He pulled out a checkbook. Actual paper checks like this was 1987. What's the total cost, surgery, recovery, medications, lost wages while you're with her? Give me a number. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money, Mrs. Chen. The question is how much. He clicked his pen. $50,000 that covers the surgery plus a year's salary. You could quit this job. Focus on your daughter's recovery. Isn't that what you want? Chains shifted on his stool. Didn't stand. Didn't need to. His presence alone was a warning. What I want, Sarah said slowly, is for your son to understand that he can't hit people. He's 18. He made a mistake. Richard's jaw tightened. A mistake that's being broadcast to millions of people right now. His face is all over the news. His future is being destroyed over one moment of poor judgment. He destroyed my face over one moment of his temper. Sarah touched her cheek, still swollen, still throbbing. Where's the money for that? Name it. You think I'm negotiating? Everyone negotiates. Richard leaned forward, lowered his voice like they were conspirators now, like they understood each other. I'll give you $100,000, right now, today. You drop the charges. You refuse all media interviews. You sign an NDA, and we all move forward. The coffee in Sarah's hands had gone cold. You want me to pretend it didn't happen? I want you to accept reality. Ethan is going to college in 8 months. Stanford, hopefully. Maybe Princeton. He's got his whole life ahead of him. An assault charge ruins that, ruins him. Richard's voice took on an edge. Is that really what you want to destroy an 18-year-old's future? I want him to face consequences. And he is facing consequences. He's humiliated. He's scared. He's learning. Richard straightened. But there's learning and then there's destruction. You have the power to choose which path this takes. Sarah looked at this man. This billionaire who'd built empires and believed everything had a price. Who'd raised a son who thought people were disposable. Who was standing here trying to buy justice like it was a commodity. No, Richard blinked. Excuse me. No, I'm not taking your money. I'm not dropping the charges. I'm not signing anything. Her voice was steady now, clear. Your son hit me because he's never faced consequences. Because people like you have been buying his way out of accountability his entire life. And I'm done being part of that system. You're making a mistake. No, Mr. Holloway, you made the mistake. You raised a boy who thinks violence is acceptable when he doesn't get his way. And now he's learning different. Richard's expression hardened. The friendly negotiator disappeared. Something colder took its place. You understand what you're refusing: financial security. Your daughter's future. All of it gone because of pride. It's not pride. It's principle. Principle doesn't pay medical bills. The surgery's already paid for. Sarah stood, met his eyes, refused to look away. Good people took care of that. People who didn't need to be bought, who just helped because it was right. Richard glanced at Chains, at the Brotherhood. Understanding dawned. Bikers. He said it like a slur. You're taking charity from bikers instead of accepting my offer. I'm accepting help from human beings who saw someone in trouble and stepped up. Sarah's hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. That's different than buying silence. This is your final offer, Mrs. Chen. $100,000. Take it or leave it. I'm leaving it. Richard stared at her, really stared, like he was trying to understand a species he'd never encountered before. People who wouldn't sell, who couldn't be bought, who chose dignity over dollars. You're going to regret this. He pocketed his checkbook. When the lawyers come, when the court cases drag on for years, when you're drowning in legal fees and your daughter's college fund is gone and you're still working this dead-end job at 65, you're going to remember this moment. Remember that you had a choice. I'll remember that I chose to be someone my daughter could be proud of. Richard turned to leave, stopped at the door. My son made a mistake, one mistake, and you're willing to ruin his entire future because of it. Chains stood up now, finally, slow and deliberate. Your son didn't make a mistake, Mr. Holloway. He made a choice. There's a difference. His voice carried across the diner. A mistake is an accident. What he did was intentional, calculated, mean, and the only person who can ruin his future is him. Sarah's just making sure he understands that actions matter. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows the difference between consequences and destruction. Chains walked closer, not threatening, just present. Your money can't fix what's broken in that boy. Only he can do that, and he won't do it if Daddy keeps writing checks. You don't know anything about my son. I know he hit a woman half his size because she brought him the wrong temperature steak. That tells me everything I need to know. Richard's face flushed. He's 18 years old. Old enough to know better. Old enough to control himself. Old enough to face what he did. Chains crossed his arms. You're not helping him by making this disappear. You're teaching him that violence is acceptable if you've got enough money. Is that really the lesson you want him to learn? For just a second, something flickered across Richard's face. Doubt, maybe, or recognition. Or the uncomfortable realization that this biker in leather and patches might be right. Then it was gone. You'll all regret this. He pushed through the door. Every single one of you. The BMW, a different one Sarah noticed, waited in the parking lot. Richard climbed in, drove away, left silence in his wake. Sarah's legs gave out again. She collapsed back onto the stool. Did I just make everything worse? No. Lou squeezed her shoulder. You just did something most people don't have the courage to do. You chose right over easy. Her phone was buzzing again even though it was off. The vibrations coming through the counter like seismic activity. They're not going to stop. Wrench spoke up. The media, the lawyers, the pressure, it's just beginning. I know. You need representation. Chains pulled out his phone. Real representation. Someone who won't be intimidated. I can't afford. Already told you, I know people. He was dialing. Civil rights lawyers who take these cases because they matter, because they're about more than money. Sarah watched him talk, watched him explain the situation in short, efficient sentences, watched him nod, say thank you, hang up. Attorney's name is Michael Bradford, works out of Seattle, specializes in cases like this, rich kids thinking they're above the law. He's taking your case pro bono. Why would he do that? Because his mother was a waitress too. Because he understands. Because sometimes people fight for what's right just because it needs fighting for. Chains slid a business card across the counter. He'll call you tomorrow. We'll walk you through everything. The door opened again. Not Richard this time. A woman in her early 30s, camera crew behind her microphone, already live. Mrs. Chen Melissa Chang, Channel 7 News. Can we get a statement about... No. Lou stepped between them. No cameras, no statements. You want a story, you leave, and you wait for an official comment like professionals. The public has a right to... The public has a right to nothing. Lou's voice was steel. This is a private business. You're trespassing. Leave. Melissa hesitated, looked at Sarah, at the brotherhood, at Lou's absolute certainty. We're just trying to tell her story. Her story's not yours to tell. Chains stood. She'll tell it when she's ready. Until then, you're vultures picking at trauma. Get out. The camera was recording. All of it. Sarah could see the little red light. You heard him. Doc was on his feet now, too. Out. Melissa and her crew backed toward the door, still filming, still recording, turning this into content, into entertainment, into something to boost ratings and fill airtime. This isn't over, Melissa said. The story's already out there. You can control the narrative or let others do it for you. She left. Sarah put her head in her hands. They're right. I can't stop this, can't control it. It's just going to keep getting bigger until what? Chains asked quietly. Until you break, until you give in, until you let Richard Holloway buy your silence and teach his son that violence works if you've got deep enough pockets. I'm so tired. I know, but tired doesn't mean quit. He sat beside her. You know what I learned in Vietnam, in the jungle when everything's falling apart, and you're scared and exhausted, and all you want is for it to stop. What? That the moment you want to quit is usually right before you break through, right before it gets better. The darkest hour really is just before dawn. Not because the universe is poetic, but because that's when most people give up, right before they would have won. Sarah lifted her head, looked at this man who'd appeared in her life like some kind of guardian angel in leather and patches. "Why are you doing this? Really? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Chains was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight that came from places Sarah couldn't imagine. "I told you about my mother, the waitress who died at 56. He stared at his coffee. "What I didn't tell you is that the day she died, she'd been crying in the bathroom. Customer grabbed her, made comments about her body, about what he'd pay for. And when she complained to her boss, you know what he said?" Sarah shook her head. "He said smile through it. Said that's the job. Said if she couldn't handle it, plenty of other women needed work." Chain's jaw clenched. She went back out there, served that man his eggs and his coffee and his pancakes, smiled the whole time, and 2 hours later, she collapsed. Heart attack, dead before the ambulance arrived. "I'm so sorry. I was 17, angry, wanted to burn the world down. Would have too, probably, if I hadn't found the brotherhood. Found people who channeled that rage into something better, into standing up, into making sure what happened to my mother didn't keep happening to others." He looked at Sarah now, really looked at her. "So, when I see some spoiled punk hit a woman who's just trying to do her job, who's working herself to exhaustion to save her kid, who's showing up with dignity, despite everything, I don't see a stranger. I see my mother. I see every woman who's been treated like she's disposable. And I make it my business to stand up, not for you, for her, for the woman who died thinking she didn't matter, for proving that she did, that you do, that everyone does." Sarah couldn't speak, could only reach across and squeeze his hand once, hard, hoping he understood. He understood. Lou's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression darkening. "That was my lawyer. Richard Holloway just filed a restraining order against you." "Against me?" Sarah's voice went up an octave. "I didn't do anything. Harassment. Defamation. He's claiming you're using this incident to extort money from his family." Lou set his phone down carefully, like it might explode. "It's bullshit, but it's legal bullshit. The kind that costs money to fight. I can't afford—" "Already handled." Chains was texting. "Bradford's on it. He'll have that restraining order dismissed by Monday. Holloway's just trying to scare you, make you back down. It's working." "No." Chains pocketed his phone. "Scared would be smart. You're terrified but still standing. That's brave. There's a difference." Sarah's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "I need to go home. Need to see Emma. Need to—" What did she need to hide? To pretend none of this was happening. "I need to be with my daughter." "Go." Lou handed her the envelope of money. "Take this. Take tomorrow off. Come back when you're ready." She drove home in a daze, parked in her usual spot at the apartment complex, walked up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again, unlocked the door with hands that felt like they belonged to someone else. Emma was on the couch, laptop open, looking at something on the screen. She looked up when Sarah entered. "Mom." Her voice was small, scared. "You're all over the internet." Sarah's heart broke. "I know, baby. I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to see. He hit you." Emma stood, 15 years old and looking so much older suddenly. "That guy hit you and you just stood there and I didn't know what to do. You should have hit him back. You should have—" Emma's voice cracked. "Why didn't anyone stop him?" "Someone did. The bikers. You saw the video. They— After he hit you, after he humiliated you, after—" Emma was crying now, full sobs. "Everyone's sharing it. Everyone at school is going to see. Everyone's going to know my mom got hit and didn't fight back and—" Sarah crossed the room, pulled her daughter into her arms, held her while she cried. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to see that." "I hate him." Emma's voice was muffled against Sarah's shoulder. "I hate him, and I hope he rots in jail, and I hope—" "Shh, it's okay. It's going to be okay." How How is this okay? Everyone's going to talk about this forever. Everyone's going to remember my mom as the woman who got slapped and stood up anyway. Sarah pulled back, looked at her daughter, and refused to be bought, and chose dignity over money. That's what I want you to remember, Emma, not the slap. What came after? Emma wiped her eyes. He offered you money, $100,000, to drop the charges, to stay quiet. And you said no. I said no. Why? Emma's voice was desperate. We need money. The surgery, the rent, everything we needed. And you just... The surgery's paid for. Sarah showed her the envelope. Good people helped, the bikers, the customers, everyone. And I said no, because some things matter more than money. Like teaching people they can't hit women and buy their way out. Like showing you that your mother has a spine. Like being someone you can be proud of. Emma stared at the money, at her mother, at the reality settling around them like snow. I'm proud of you. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm scared and I'm angry, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm proud of you. Sarah pulled her close again, held her, let the tears come for both of them. Outside, a car pulled up. Footsteps on the stairs. A knock at the door. Sarah looked through the peephole. 3 people. 2 men in suits. 1 woman with a briefcase. Mrs. Chen. The woman's voice was professional, cold. We're from Holloway Legal Enterprises. We need to serve you with papers. Emma's eyes went wide. Don't open it. But Sarah did. Took the papers, signed for them, closed the door, read the first page. Defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. A lawsuit seeking $5 million in damages. Mom, Emma's voice was small again. What is it? Sarah looked at her daughter, at the 15-year-old who needed heart surgery on Monday, who needed her mother to be strong, who needed to believe that doing the right thing mattered even when it was hard. It's Richard Holloway trying to scare us. She set the papers down. It's not going to work. Her phone rang. Michael Bradford. The lawyer Chains had called. She answered. Mrs. Chen, I just heard about the lawsuit. Don't panic. This is textbook intimidation. Slap suit designed to... What's a slap suit? Strategic lawsuit against public participation. Basically, he's suing you to shut you up, to drain your resources, to make fighting back too expensive. Bradford's voice was calm, measured. But he picked the wrong target and the wrong lawyer. I'm filing a motion to dismiss on Monday. This won't stand. He can't actually win, can he? $5 million for... He can't win, but he can drag it out, make it painful, make you wish you'd taken the 100,000. Bradford paused. That's what he's counting on. People folding under pressure. But from what Chains told me, you're not most people. I'm not anyone special. I'm just... You're someone who got hit and didn't stay down, who refused blood money, who's standing up against a billionaire because it's right. Bradford's voice warmed slightly. That makes you exactly the kind of person worth fighting for. So let me fight for you. Let me handle the legal warfare. You just focus on your daughter and her surgery. Sarah looked at Emma, at her brave, scared, beautiful daughter who needed her to be strong. Okay. She said it out loud. Made it real. Okay. Let's fight. She hung up. Emma was watching her with eyes that looked too old for 15. Are we going to be okay, Mom? Sarah didn't lie, didn't promise things she couldn't guarantee. Just pulled her daughter close and held her while the world shifted and changed and prepared for war outside their small apartment. I don't know, baby, but we're going to fight like hell to find out. Sunday morning came with rain. Sarah woke to Emma coughing in the next room, that wet, rattling sound that meant her daughter's heart was struggling again. 24 hours until surgery. 24 hours that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to jump. She padded into Emma's room, found her daughter sitting up, hand pressed to her chest, trying to breathe through whatever was happening inside her body. Mom, Emma's voice was thin, scared. It hurts. Sarah's training kicked in. Years of managing this condition of knowing when to panic and when to stay calm. This was panic territory. We're going to the ER. The surgery's tomorrow, they said. Now, Emma. The drive to St. Catherine's Hospital took 12 minutes that stretched into eternities. Emma's breathing getting shallower. Her lips taking on a blue tinge that made Sarah's own heart want to stop. She pulled up to the emergency entrance, left the car running, carried her daughter through the automatic doors. I need help. My daughter has a congenital heart defect, and she's nurses materialized, wheelchair, gurney, oxygen mask. Emma disappeared behind swinging doors, and Sarah stood there in the waiting room with wet clothes and shaking hands and the absolute certainty that everything was falling apart. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Stop the charges or your daughter pays the price. Her blood went cold. She dialed 911, told them about the threat, gave them the number. Sat there waiting for police while her daughter fought to breathe in the ER, and strangers on the internet dissected her life for entertainment. Officer Rodriguez arrived within 20 minutes. Mrs. Chen, I got your call. He sat beside her. Tell me exactly what the message said. Then, she showed him, watched his expression harden. We'll trace it, but these things they're usually sent through burner phones or apps that mask. I know who sent it. Sarah's voice was flat, dead. Richard Holloway, or someone working for him. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. She looked at Rodriguez, really looked at him. He threatened me yesterday, said I'd regret not taking his money. And now my daughter's in the ER the day before her surgery, and I'm getting anonymous threats. You think that's coincidence? Rodriguez pulled out his notebook. I'll investigate, but without proof. Of course there's no proof. Men like him don't leave proof. They hire people, use cutouts, make sure their hands stay clean. Sarah stood, paced, couldn't sit still when Emma was behind those doors fighting. But we both know who's behind this. A doctor emerged. Young woman, exhausted eyes scrubs that had seen better days. Mrs. Chen, I'm Dr. Patel. Emma's stable now. We've got her on oxygen and medications to reduce the strain on her heart, but she needs that surgery. Tomorrow might even be too late. Can you move it up? Do it today. Dr. Morrison's the cardiac surgeon. He's off today. Won't be back until 6 a.m. tomorrow. Dr. Patel's voice was gentle but firm. We're keeping Emma overnight, monitoring her closely. But you need to prepare yourself. Her heart's failing faster than we anticipated. The floor dropped out from under Sarah's world. How much faster? Days instead of weeks. Maybe hours if we're unlucky. Dr. Patel touched her arm. The surgery tomorrow, if she's stable enough, it's her best chance. Maybe her only chance. Sarah nodded. Couldn't speak. Could only watch Dr. Patel walk away and feel the weight of every decision she'd made in the past 48 hours crushing down on her. If she'd taken Richard's money, she could have gotten Emma into a better hospital. Could have paid for the best surgeons, could have stopped. She turned. Chains stood in the waiting room doorway, dripping rain, looking like some kind of avenging angel who'd materialized out of thin air. How did you bow? Lou called me. Said you'd rushed Emma to the ER. He crossed to her. Stop blaming yourself. I can see it on your face. Stop. If I'd taken the money, then you'd have taught your daughter that violence is acceptable if the price is right. That dignity can be bought. That standing up for yourself doesn't matter. Chain's voice was rock solid, unmovable. You made the right choice. My daughter might die because of the right choice. Your daughter might die because she's sick, not because you have a spine. He guided her to a chair, sat beside her. What happened? Why'd she crash? Sarah showed him the text message. Chain's expression went dark. Dangerous. The kind of dangerous that made Sarah understand why people crossed the street when they saw the Hells Angels vests. He threatened your daughter. Can't prove it was him. Don't need to prove it. Just need to respond. Chains was texting. Fast. Furious. The Brotherhood's got connections. People who owe us favors. Tech guys who can trace things the cops can't. We'll find out who sent this. Even if you do, what then? He's a billionaire. He's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable. Chains looked at her. Trust me on that. Sarah's phone rang. Michael Bradford. Mrs. Chen, I just heard about the threat. I'm filing for an emergency protective order and I'm calling a press conference for tomorrow afternoon. A what? Press conference. You, me, we're going public with everything. The slap, the bribe attempt, the lawsuit, the threat, all of it. Bradford's voice was energized, battle ready. Holloway wants to play dirty. We'll drag everything into the light. I can't do a press conference. My daughter's surgery is tomorrow morning. I need to be... The surgery's at 7 a.m., right? We'll do the press conference at 2 p.m. Gives you time to be with Emma during recovery. Gives the story time to build. Gives Holloway time to sweat. Bradford paused. Unless you want to back out. Take his money. Make this all go away. Sarah looked at the ER doors, at the place where her daughter fought for every breath. No backing out. We fight. That's what I wanted to hear. She hung up. Chains was watching her with something like respect. You're tougher than you look. I'm terrified. Same thing sometimes. He stood. I'm making some calls, pulling some strings. Your daughter's getting the best care possible even if I have to personally fund it. You've already done too much. Haven't done nearly enough. He headed for the door. Stopped. Sarah, what I said before about my mother, about standing up, this is what it looks like, this moment right here, when everything's falling apart and you're scared and you still choose right over easy. She would have been proud of you. He left. Sarah sat alone in the waiting room while rain hammered the windows and her daughter fought for her life, and the internet continued its feeding frenzy over a moment of violence that had somehow become national news. Her phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, strangers, people offering support and people offering hate in equal measure. She turned it off, couldn't handle the noise, needed silence to think. A nurse appeared. Mrs. Chen, Emma's asking for you. She followed through sterile hallways to a room where her daughter lay connected to machines that beeped and hummed and tracked the struggle happening inside her chest. Mom. Emma's voice was muffled by the oxygen mask. I'm sorry. Baby, you have nothing to be sorry for. I made you worry, made everything harder. Tears leaked from Emma's eyes. If I wasn't sick, you could have taken the money. Could have... Stop. Sarah gripped her daughter's hand. You are not the problem. You are not a burden. You are the reason I fight. The reason I stand up. The reason I refuse to let people treat me like I'm nothing. She leaned close. You're my heart, Emma. My whole heart. And tomorrow, we're going to fix yours. And then we're going to show the world what happens when you try to break people who refuse to be broken. Emma squeezed her hand, weak but determined. I love you, Mom. I love you more than anything in this universe. Sarah stayed until Emma fell asleep. Stayed watching the monitors, counting heartbeats, praying to a God she wasn't sure existed that her daughter would make it through the night. Her phone still off sat in her purse like a ticking bomb. When she finally turned it back on 300 new messages loaded. Most were supportive. Some were vile. But one stood out. From Chains found the source of the threat. Hired PI working for Holloway's head of security. Cops have the evidence. Arrest warrant being issued. Sarah's hands shook as she typed back, Are you serious? Dead serious. Holloway's going down. Not today, not tomorrow, but he's going down. She looked at Emma sleeping. At her brave, beautiful daughter who'd been dealt the worst hand and still kept fighting. We're going to be okay, she whispered. We're going to make it through this. Monday morning arrived with cruel sunshine. Emma's surgery was scheduled for 7 a.m. Sarah had been awake all night watching her daughter breathe, counting every rise and fall of her chest, like they were precious stones she was afraid to lose. Dr. Morrison arrived at 6:30, 50-something steady hands' eyes that had seen thousands of hearts and knew their secrets. Mrs. Chen, I've reviewed Emma's case. The surgery's going to take about 4 hours. It's risky, but she's young and strong and we're going to do everything we can. Will she make it? Dr. Morrison didn't lie, didn't offer false comfort. I don't know. Her heart's weaker than I'd like. The stress from yesterday didn't help. But if we don't operate now, she'll be dead within a week. Maybe sooner. Sarah felt something inside her crack, not break, just crack, enough to let the fear leak through. Save her, please. She's all I have. I'm going to try. They wheeled Emma away at 6:55. Sarah watched her daughter disappear through operating room doors and felt like she was watching her own heart being cut out of her chest. The waiting room filled slowly. Lou arrived with coffee and breakfast sandwiches Sarah couldn't eat. Chains and the Brotherhood showed up in force, 7 men in leather vests who'd decided this fight was theirs too. Michael Bradford came at 8, briefcase full of legal documents and battle strategies. The press conference is set for 2 p.m., he said. Holloway's lawyers are already trying to shut it down, filed an injunction claiming it violates the restraining order. I thought you got that dismissed. I did. They filed a new one this morning. Bradford smiled. Predatory. Judges don't like people who abuse the legal system. This one's going to backfire on him badly. At 9 a.m., Officer Rodriguez arrived with news. We arrested Marcus Webb Holloway's head of security an hour ago. He's already talking. Confirmed that Richard Holloway ordered him to send the threat. Tried to make it untraceable, but our tech guys found the connection. Sarah's heart jumped. You're saying Richard Holloway is going to be arrested? We're building the case. Should have enough for charges by end of day. Rodriguez looked satisfied. Threatening a witness intimidation conspiracy. He's looking at serious time if convicted. Chains leaned back in his chair. Good. At 10:30, Sarah's phone exploded again. Not with threats this time, with support. The video had hit 10 million views. The story had been picked up by every major news outlet. GoFundMe campaigns from strangers had raised another $100,000. Offers were pouring in free legal services, medical bill assistance, people wanting to help because the story had touched something in them. You're a symbol now, Bradford said quietly. Whether you wanted it or not, the waitress who stood up to a billionaire, the single mother who chose dignity over money. People are invested in your story, in Emma's recovery, in seeing justice happen. I just wanted him to apologize. Sometimes small sparks start big fires. Bradford checked his watch. Surgery should be halfway done by now. How are you holding up? I'm terrified. Good. Means you're human. He squeezed her shoulder. Your daughter's going to make it. And this afternoon we're going to make sure Richard Holloway understands that money doesn't buy immunity from consequences. At 11:15, Dr. Morrison emerged from the operating room. Sarah stood so fast her chair fell over. Doctor. Morrison's expression was unreadable. Mrs. Chen, the surgery went as well as we could hope. We've repaired the defect, strengthened the valve. Emma's heart is beating on its own now. Is she? She's alive. Critical but stable. The next 48 hours are crucial. But if she makes it through that, her prognosis is good. Really good. Sarah's legs gave out. Chains caught her, held her up while she sobbed into his leather vest and felt the weight of months of fear finally break loose. Can I see her? Recovery room, 15 minutes. Dr. Morrison smiled for the first time. She's a fighter, your daughter. Strongest heart I've seen in someone so sick. Sarah couldn't speak, could only nod and cry and feel relief flood through her like water breaking through a dam. Emma looked tiny in the recovery room bed. Tubes and wires and machines, but her chest was rising and falling with steady rhythm. Her lips were pink again. Not blue. Pink. Baby. Sarah touched her daughter's hand. You did it. You made it through. Emma's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, drugged, but aware. Mom, I'm here. I'm right here. Did we win? Sarah laughed through her tears. Yeah, baby, we won. Emma smiled, fell back asleep. Sarah sat beside her and held her hand and felt like maybe, just maybe, the universe was capable of mercy after all. At 1:30, Michael Bradford appeared in the doorway. She looks good. She's alive. That's all that matters. The press conference is in 30 minutes. You ready? Sarah looked at her daughter, at the steady rise and fall of her chest, at the monitors showing a heartbeat that was stronger than it had been in months. Yeah, I'm ready. The hospital conference room was packed. Cameras, reporters, lights so bright Sarah had to squint. Michael Bradford stood at the podium, calm and professional, laying out the facts like he was presenting evidence in court. The slap, the bribe attempt, the lawsuit, the threat against Emma, Marcus Webb's arrest, the evidence linking it all back to Richard Holloway. And now, Bradford said, Mrs. Chen would like to make a statement. Sarah stood, walked to the microphone, looked at the cameras and the reporters and the strangers who'd made her pain into entertainment. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a waitress at Lou's Steakhouse. I'm a single mother. And 2 days ago, Ethan Holloway slapped me because I brought him the wrong temperature steak. Her voice was steady, strong. She'd practiced this, rehearsed it with Bradford. But the words still felt raw, real. His father offered me $100,000 to stay quiet, to drop the charges, to pretend it didn't happen. And I said no. Not because I'm brave, not because I'm a hero, but because I have a daughter who's watching, who needs to learn that dignity matters, that standing up for yourself matters, that some things can't be bought. She paused. Let it sink in. Yesterday, someone threatened my daughter, told me to drop the charges or she'd pay the price. That person was arrested this morning. The evidence shows he was working for Richard Holloway, a billionaire, a man who thinks money gives him the right to threaten a sick child to protect his son from consequences. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for justice, real justice, the kind that says it doesn't matter how rich you are, how powerful you are, how many lawyers you can afford. If you hit someone, you face consequences. If you threaten a child, you face consequences. If you think your money makes you untouchable, you're wrong. Her voice cracked. She steadied it. My daughter just had heart surgery. She's alive because good people helped when I had nothing. Strangers who saw someone in trouble and stepped up. The Hells Angels who stood up when no one else would. The lawyer who took my case for free because it was right. The community that raised money for a surgery I couldn't afford. Those people, they're the heroes, not me. I'm just a mother trying to protect her child and make sure other mothers don't have to go through what I went through. She looked directly at the camera. Richard Holloway, Ethan Holloway. You made a choice when you thought violence was acceptable, when you thought money could buy silence, when you threatened my daughter. And now you're going to learn that choices have consequences, that the law applies to everyone, that you can't buy your way out of being a decent human being. She stepped back from the microphone. Bradford fielded questions. Sarah stood there and let the cameras flash and the reporters shout and felt something shift inside her, something that had been bent for so long it had almost broken. Standing up straight again, strong again. Her phone buzzed, text from Chains. You did good, real good, real. Your daughter's going to be proud. She typed back, thank you for everything. That's what brothers do. We stand up. The press conference ended. Sarah made it back to Emma's room on legs that felt shaky, found her daughter awake, watching news coverage on the room TV. Mom, you were amazing. You watched. The nurse turned it on. Everyone's talking about it. Twitter's exploding. People are saying you're a hero. Emma's smile was weak but real. I told you, I'm proud of you. Sarah climbed into the hospital bed, careful of the wires and tubes, held her daughter close. We're going to be okay now. I know. Emma closed her eyes. We won, didn't we? For real this time. Yeah, baby. We won. But even as Sarah said it, even as she held her daughter and felt relief and hope and exhaustion all mixed together, she knew the fight wasn't over. Richard Holloway was still out there, still powerful, still dangerous, and men like that didn't go down without a fight. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Mrs. Chen, a woman's voice. Professional, cold. This is Janet Meyer from Holloway Legal. We'd like to schedule a meeting, discuss settlement terms. I already said no to $2 million. All charges dropped. Complete confidentiality agreement. The offer expires in 24 hours. Sarah looked at Emma sleeping, at her daughter who'd just survived surgery that cost a fraction of $2 million, at the life they could have, the security, the peace. No. Mrs. Chen, please reconsider. This is a generous, I don't care if you offer 20 million. The answer is no. Your client threatened my daughter. He's going to pay for that. In court, in public, where everyone can see that money doesn't buy immunity. She hung up. Emma's eyes were open again, listening. They offered you money. 2 million. And you said no. I said no. Emma smiled. That brave, beautiful smile that reminded Sarah why she fought, why she stood up, why she refused to be broken. Good. We don't need their money. We've got each other. That's worth more than anything. Sarah held her daughter and watched the sunset through the hospital window and felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe. Or just the certainty that she'd made the right choice, that dignity mattered, that standing up mattered, that teaching her daughter these lessons mattered more than any amount of money ever could. Outside, the storm was gathering. Richard Holloway's arrest warrant, Ethan's trial, the legal battles ahead. But for right now, in this moment, Sarah Chen was exactly where she needed to be, with her daughter, alive, fighting, winning, and that was enough. The arrest happened at 6 a.m. on Tuesday. Sarah was asleep in the chair beside Emma's hospital bed when her phone buzzed. Text from Officer Rodriguez. Holloway's in custody. Thought you'd want to know. She sat up, read it twice to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Richard Holloway, billionaire, power broker, the man who thought money made him untouchable, in handcuffs. Emma stirred. Mom, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, baby. Everything's right. Sarah showed her the text. They arrested him. Emma's eyes widened. For real? For real? A nurse came in for the morning vitals check. Young guy couldn't have been more than 25 and he was grinning. You see the news, it's all over every channel. Richard Holloway doing the perp walk in his $1,000 pajamas. He laughed while checking Emma's blood pressure. Man looked like he couldn't believe it was happening to him. Sarah pulled up the news on her phone. There it was. Video footage of Richard Holloway being led out of his mansion in handcuffs. His face was pale, shocked. The expression of someone who'd never once considered that consequences applied to him too. The charges scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Witness intimidation conspiracy to commit harassment, making terroristic threats, obstruction of justice. They're saying he could get 15 years if convicted, the nurse continued. 15 years for threatening a kid. Man, karma's real. Sarah couldn't stop watching the video, watching this man who'd tried to buy her silence, who'd sued her for $5 million, who'd threatened her daughter being treated like the criminal he was. Mom. Emma's voice was quiet. Do you feel bad for him? Should I? I don't know. He's going to lose everything. His company, his reputation, maybe his freedom. That's his whole life destroyed. Sarah thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I don't feel bad. He made choices. Raised his son to think violence was acceptable. Tried to buy his way out of consequences. Threatened a 15-year-old girl with a heart condition to protect his own interests. She looked at her daughter. People like that don't deserve pity. They deserve exactly what they get. Dr. Morrison came in at 7:30 for rounds. His expression was pleased. Emma's recovery is progressing beautifully. Heart rhythm is strong. No signs of rejection or complications. If she continues like this, we can move her out of ICU tomorrow. Home by the end of the week. That fast. Sarah's relief was so intense it hurt. That fast. She's young, Her body's responding well to the repair. Barring any setbacks, she's going to be just fine. Dr. Morrison smiled. Better than fine. With proper care and follow-up, she can live a completely normal life. Sarah started crying. Couldn't help it. Weeks of fear and stress and uncertainty breaking apart like ice in spring. Emma grabbed her hand. "Mom, I'm okay. We're okay." "I know. Sarah wiped her eyes. "I've been so scared for so long, and now it's over and I don't know how to feel. Feel relieved. Feel happy. Feel like we won." Emma squeezed her hand. "Because we did." Michael Bradford called at 8. "Have you seen the news?" "I saw. He's actually in jail." Arraignments at 10. Judge denied bail because of flight risk. Holloway's got properties in 6 countries and access to a private jet. Prosecution's arguing he'll disappear the second he's released. Bradford sounded energized. "This is better than I could have hoped. The man who thought he was above the law is sitting in a cell right now with common criminals." "What about Ethan, his trial?" "Pushed back 2 weeks because of his father's arrest. But it's still happening. Assault charges don't disappear just because daddy's in trouble." Bradford paused. "How's Emma?" "Getting better. Doctor says she can go home by the end of the week." "Good. Because things are about to get intense. Media's in a frenzy. Everyone wants interviews with you. The waitress who brought down a billionaire. You're a folk hero now." "I don't want to be a folk hero. I just want my daughter healthy and my life back." "Too late for that. You're a symbol whether you want to be or not. The question is what you do with it." Sarah hung up feeling overwhelmed, exhausted. Like she'd been fighting for so long she'd forgotten what peace felt like. Chains showed up at 9 with breakfast from Lou's. Real food, not hospital cafeteria garbage. "Thought you might be hungry." He set down bags of eggs and bacon and pancakes that smelled like heaven. Lou wanted to come himself, but the diner slammed. "Everyone's talking about what happened. You're famous." "I don't want to be famous." "Fame finds people whether they want it or not." Chains sat in the chair Sarah had been sleeping in. "Question is what you do with the platform. You can hide from it, or you can use it to make sure this never happens to anyone else." "What do you mean?" "There's talk about a Sarah Chen law. State legislation that makes it a felony to assault service workers. Mandatory prosecution, no plea deals, no settlements. Your story started it. Your testimony could make it happen." Sarah looked at Emma. Her daughter was eating pancakes with the appetite of someone who'd been too sick to eat for months, getting stronger by the hour. "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." Chains stood to leave, stopped. "My brothers and I were heading out today. Got a charity ride in Montana this weekend. But if you need anything at all, you call me, day or night. We're family now. Thank you for everything, for standing up when no one else would. That's what family does." He gripped her shoulder once, hard. Then he was gone. Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Mrs. Chen," a young voice, male, shaking. "This is Ethan Holloway." Sarah's blood went cold. "How did you get this number?" "I need to talk to you. Please. Just 5 minutes." "Your father tried to have my daughter threatened. You think I want to talk to you?" "I didn't know about that. I swear, I didn't know he'd..." Ethan's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry for everything. For hitting you, for being a complete asshole, for..." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." "I know. I know it doesn't. But I need you to hear me say it anyway. I was wrong. So completely wrong. And I've been thinking about what you said at the press conference, about my daughter watching, about teaching her that dignity matters." He paused. "My dad never taught me that. He taught me that money fixes everything, that power means you don't have to care about other people. And I became exactly what he raised me to be, a monster." Sarah didn't speak, didn't know what to say. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I'm going to plead guilty. Take whatever punishment the court gives me. And then I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better than I was. Trying to be someone who stands up instead of someone who tears people down. Why are you telling me this?" Because you deserve to know. Because you stood up when I tried to break you. Because you're stronger than anyone I've ever met, and I want to be even a fraction of that strong someday. Ethan's breathing was ragged. I destroyed my father's life. Destroyed my own life. All because I couldn't control my temper over a steak. And you're right, that's pathetic. That's shameful, and I'm going to own it. Sarah closed her eyes. Thought about revenge. About justice. About what it meant to hold someone accountable while still allowing room for growth. Thank you for calling. That's it. That's all you're going to say. What do you want me to say, Ethan? That I forgive you, I don't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You humiliated me. Hurt me. Set off a chain of events that nearly killed my daughter. Her voice was steady, final. But I hope you mean what you're saying. I hope you become better. Not for me. For yourself. Because the person you were when you walked into that diner, that person was ugly. And the world has enough ugliness already. She hung up. Emma was watching her. Was that really him? Yeah. What did he want? To apologize. To tell me he's pleading guilty. Do you believe him? Sarah thought about it. About Ethan's voice. The genuine remorse she'd heard. Or maybe wanted to hear. I don't know. People can change. But they have to want to. He says he wants to. Time will tell if he means it. The arraignment aired live at 10 a.m. Sarah and Emma watched on the hospital room TV. Watched Richard Holloway stand before a judge in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive lawyer beside him looking grim. Mr. Holloway, you're charged with witness intimidation conspiracy, making terroristic threats, and obstruction of justice. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. Richard's voice was controlled, arrogant even now. These charges are baseless. Political persecution designed to save the speeches for trial, Mr. Holloway. The judge was a woman in her 60s, steel gray hair eyes that had seen every trick in the book. Bail is set at $5 million. You're to surrender your passport. No contact with any witnesses. Electronic monitoring. Any violation, and you're back in this cell. Understood? Your Honor, this is excessive. My client is a respected businessman with... Your client threatened a child to intimidate her mother into dropping assault charges against his son. I'd say $5 million is generous. Next case. The gavel came down. Richard Holloway's face twisted, just for a second. Then the mask was back. But Sarah had seen it. The rage, the humiliation, the shock of being treated like everyone else. He's going to make bail, Emma said quietly. Probably. But he's stuck here. Can't leave the country, can't threaten anyone, can't use his money to make this disappear. Sarah felt something settle in her chest. He's going to trial. And the whole world's going to watch. Lou called at noon. Sarah, you need to come by the diner when Emma's up for it. Something you need to see. What is it? Just come. Trust me. 3 days later, Emma was released from the hospital. She moved slowly, carefully, but she moved, under her own power, with a heart that beat strong and steady. They drove to Lou's steakhouse. Sarah's hands were shaking on the wheel. She hadn't been back since the slap, hadn't wanted to face the place where her life had changed. But when they walked in, the entire restaurant stood up, applause, cheering, customers and staff, and Lou himself with tears streaming down his face. Welcome home, Sarah. A banner hung across the back wall, Sarah Chen Appreciation Day. Tables were packed, people Sarah had served for years, regulars who'd watched her daughter grow up, strangers who'd driven hours just to meet her. And at table 12, the brotherhood, all 7 of them, chains at the head grinning like a proud father. We told you, he called out. Good things happen to good people. Sometimes you just gotta wait. Emma was crying. Happy tears. Sarah was crying too, overwhelmed by the love in this room, the community that had rallied around her. Lou approached with an envelope. From the town, from everyone. It's not much, but... Sarah opened it. A check for $50,000. Donations from the community, from strangers. from people who'd been moved by her story. "This is too much. I can't accept." "You can and you will." Lou's voice was firm. "Emma's medical bills are paid, but you need savings, security, the ability to take time off if you need it. We take care of our own Sarah, and you're ours." Sarah couldn't speak, could only hug Lou while the restaurant applauded and Emma beamed, and the weight of months of struggle finally lifted. A reporter from the local paper approached. "Mrs. Chen, there's talk about the Sarah Chen law. State legislation protecting service workers. Would you be willing to testify before the state legislature?" Sarah looked at Emma, at her daughter who'd survived, who was strong, who was watching her mother and learning what it meant to stand up. "Yes, I'll testify." The reporter grinned. "This is going to change everything for every service worker in the state, maybe the country." "Good, because what happened to me shouldn't happen to anyone, ever." Ethan's trial began 2 weeks later. Sarah sat in the courtroom with Emma beside her, Michael Bradford on her other side, the brotherhood filling the row behind them like guardian angels in leather. Ethan walked in wearing a suit that probably cost more than Sarah's car, but his face was different, older somehow, the arrogance gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine remorse. His lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea." The judge looked up. "Excuse me. Mr. Holloway wishes to plead guilty to all charges. No plea bargain, no reduced sentence. He's prepared to accept whatever punishment the court deems appropriate." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor looked stunned. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." "Irregular but legal." The judge studied Ethan. "Mr. Holloway, do you understand what you're doing? You're pleading guilty to assault. That's a felony. It will follow you for the rest of your life." "I understand, Your Honor." Ethan's voice was steady. "I did it. Everyone knows I did it. There's video, witnesses, and Mrs. Chen deserves to see me held accountable without having to relive her trauma in a trial." The judge was silent for a long moment. "Very well. Given your guilty plea and the violent nature of the assault, I'm sentencing you to 200 hours of community service, 18 months probation, mandatory anger management counseling, and a permanent restraining order preventing you from contacting Mrs. Chen or her daughter." She paused. "Additionally, you're going to write a personal letter of apology, not for the court, for Mrs. Chen, and you're going to read it aloud, right now." Ethan nodded, pulled out a folded piece of paper, unfolded it with shaking hands. "Mrs. Chen," his voice cracked, "I am so deeply sorry for what I did to you. There's no excuse for hitting you, no excuse for the cruelty, the disrespect, the entitled attitude I showed that day. You were doing your job with kindness and professionalism, and I responded with violence because I didn't get what I wanted. That's shameful. That's unforgivable." He looked up, met Sarah's eyes. "You showed me what real strength looks like. Not the fake power that comes from money or privilege. Real strength. The kind that stands up even when you're scared. Even when everything's falling apart. Even when it would be easier to give in." Ethan wiped his eyes. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. To be someone who lifts people up instead of tearing them down. I know that doesn't fix what I did, but I hope someday, years from now, you'll hear about the person I became and think that maybe your courage changed someone for the better." He folded the letter, sat down. The courtroom was silent. The judge cleared her throat. "Mrs. Chen, would you like to make a statement?" Sarah stood. Emma gripped her hand once. "Let go." "I accept your apology, Ethan. Not because I forgive you. I'm not there yet. But because I believe people can change if they choose to." She took a breath. "What you did to me hurt, not just physically. It hurt my sense of safety, my dignity, my belief that showing up and working hard mattered. You made me feel invisible, worthless, and that's a wound that doesn't heal quickly. Ethan's head was bowed. But I'm not going to let what you did define me. I'm not going to carry that weight forever. I'm going to use this experience to make sure other service workers have protection, have support, have a voice when people try to silence them. Sarah's voice grew stronger. So thank you, Ethan. Not for hitting me, but for showing the world what happens when we stop tolerating abuse, when we stand up, when we demand better. She sat down. The judge banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Sarah made a brief statement about the Sarah Chen law, about dignity, about change. Then she took Emma's hand and walked through the crowd to where Chains and the Brotherhood waited. You did good in there, Chains said. It's not over yet. Richard's trial is next month. That one's going to be ugly. Billionaire facing real time. His lawyers will throw everything at the wall. Chains crossed his arms. You ready for that fight? Sarah thought about everything she'd been through. The slap, the threats, the surgery, the press conferences, the lawsuit, all of it. Yeah, I'm ready. Richard Holloway's trial was a circus. Media packed the courthouse. Protesters lined the streets. Signs reading, "Justice for Sarah and no one is above the law and protect our service workers." Richard sat at the defense table looking smaller somehow, diminished, his empire crumbling around him. Board of directors had forced him out of his own company. Stock prices had tanked. Associates were distancing themselves. Everything he'd built turning to ash because he'd threatened a sick child. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. Phone records, email trails, testimony from Marcus Webb, Richard's head of security, who'd taken a plea deal in exchange for cooperation. Mr. Holloway instructed me to send an anonymous threat to Mrs. Chen. Webb testified. He said, and I quote, "Make her understand that protecting her daughter means backing off my son." He knew she was vulnerable, knew she'd do anything to keep Emma safe, and he exploited that. Richard's lawyer tried to discredit Webb, tried to paint him as a disgruntled employee, tried everything. It didn't work. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Richard's face went white. His lawyer started arguing for leniency immediately. The judge was the same woman who'd handled Ethan's case. She looked at Richard with something like disgust. Mr. Holloway, you used your wealth and power to terrorize a woman who was already struggling. You threatened a sick child to protect your son from consequences he deserved. You obstructed justice. You showed no remorse throughout this trial. She paused. The law applies to everyone, rich or poor, powerful or powerless, and today it applies to you. She sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. No early release, no special treatment. Richard slumped in his chair. Outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. Sarah stood on the courthouse steps with Emma and Michael Bradford and the Brotherhood. Watched people celebrate. Watched justice happen in real time. How do you feel? Bradford asked. Relieved, exhausted, like I can finally breathe. Sarah looked at Emma. Like we can finally move forward. Emma smiled. We did it, Mom. We really did it. Yeah, baby, we did. Chains appeared with the rest of the Brotherhood. This calls for a celebration. Lou's having a party tonight. Whole town's invited. You coming? Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. First time in weeks. Yeah, we're coming. That night, Lou's steakhouse was packed beyond capacity. Music playing. Food flowing. People dancing and celebrating, and Sarah at the center of it all. Not because she wanted attention, but because people needed to see that standing up worked, that justice was possible, that courage mattered. She danced with Emma, with Lou, with Chains and the Brotherhood, with customers who'd become friends, with strangers who'd become family. And for the first time since that terrible afternoon when Ethan had raised his hand, Sarah Chen felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not just for herself, for everyone who'd ever been invisible, who'd ever been disrespected, who'd ever wondered if standing up was worth it. The answer was yes, always yes. And watching her daughter twirl on the dance floor with a heart that beat strong and steady, Sarah knew that some battles were worth fighting, no matter the cost. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the state capitol building wearing a suit she'd bought specifically for this occasion. Emma sat in the gallery with Lou in chains watching her mother prepare to testify before the state legislature about the Sarah Chen law. The committee chairman, a man in his 70s with kind eyes, gestured for her to begin. Mrs. Chen, thank you for being here today. Please tell us in your own words why this legislation matters. Sarah looked at the microphone, at the politicians watching her, at the cameras recording everything for the public record. And she thought about that afternoon 6 months ago, when a spoiled teenager had slapped her and changed everything. 6 months ago, I was assaulted at work for bringing someone the wrong temperature steak. He hit me, in front of customers, in front of my coworkers, and for about 30 seconds, I thought my life was over. Not because of the physical pain, because of what it represented. The powerlessness, the humiliation, the certainty that nothing would change because men like him never face consequences. She paused. Let it sink in. But I was lucky. The Hells Angels were there. They stood up. They made it impossible for him to walk away. And because of their intervention, because of the video that went viral, because of a legal system that actually worked for once justice happened, he was held accountable. His father was held accountable. And I got to stand here today and tell you that change is possible. A legislator raised her hand. But Mrs. Chen, assault is already illegal. Why do we need specific legislation for service workers? Because assault charges can be dropped. Victims can be pressured into settlements. Employers can fire workers who speak up. And wealthy defendants can drag cases out for years until victims give up from exhaustion. Sarah's voice grew stronger. This law makes assault on service workers a mandatory prosecution. No settlements, no dropped charges, no employer retaliation. It sends a message that these workers matter, that their dignity matters, that they're not disposable. Another legislator spoke up. What about false accusations? How do we prevent this from being abused? The same way we prevent any law from being abused. Evidence, witnesses, due process. But right now, service workers have no protection at all. They're told to smile through harassment, to accept abuse as part of the job, to stay quiet because speaking up means losing income they can't afford to lose. Sarah leaned forward. I had video evidence, multiple witnesses, and I still almost lost everything because Richard Holloway had money and lawyers and the belief that he could make me disappear. Most service workers don't have what I had. This law gives them a fighting chance. The committee chairman nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. We'll take your testimony into consideration during our deliberations. Sarah stepped down, walked back to the gallery where Emma hugged her tight. You were amazing, Mom. Think it'll pass. It has to. After everything you went through, they'd be monsters not to pass it. Chains stood. Come on. I'm buying lunch. We need to talk. They went to a diner 3 blocks from the Capitol. Not Lou's too far, but the kind of place that felt familiar, comfortable, real. Chains waited until they'd ordered before speaking. The Brotherhood's been talking. We want to start a foundation. Legal defense fund for service workers who face assault or harassment. We'd call it the Sarah Chen Foundation. Sarah nearly choked on her water. What no? You can't name it after me. Why not? You're the reason it exists. Your story inspired it. Chains was serious, completely serious. We've got commitments for $500,000 in seed funding. Lawyers willing to work pro bono, a network ready to mobilize. We can help people the way we helped you. I didn't do this to be famous, to have foundations named after me. I just wanted justice, dignity, change, we know. Chains smiled. That's exactly why your name should be on it. Because you didn't want fame. You wanted what was right. And that's the kind of integrity this foundation needs. Emma grabbed her mother's hand. Say yes, Mom. Think about all the people you could help. Sarah looked at her daughter. At this brave young woman who'd survived heart surgery and watched her mother fight a billionaire and came out stronger on the other side. Okay, yes, let's do it. Chains grinned. Good, because I already filed the paperwork. We're officially launching next month. You what? I knew you'd say yes eventually. Just figured I'd speed up the process. He raised his coffee cup. To the Sarah Chen Foundation. May it help every person who's ever been told to smile through abuse. They clinked cups. Sarah felt something shift inside her, something that had been broken slowly rebuilding. Not back to what it was. Something different. Stronger. The Sarah Chen Law passed 3 weeks later by a unanimous vote. Sarah watched from the gallery as the governor signed it into law. Emma beside her. Lou and the entire staff from the steakhouse. Chains and the Brotherhood. Michael Bradford. Officer Rodriguez. Dr. Morrison. Everyone who'd been part of her story gathered to witness this moment. As of today, the governor said, California becomes the first state to provide comprehensive protection for service workers facing assault, mandatory prosecution, employer retaliation penalties, victim support services. This is a landmark moment in workers' rights, and we have Mrs. Sarah Chen to thank for her courage in making this possible. Applause filled the room. Sarah stood, waved, felt tears streaming down her face because this was real. This was change. This was her pain transforming into protection for others. Afterwards, reporters swarmed. Sarah made a brief statement about dignity and justice and how one person standing up could create ripples that reached farther than anyone imagined. Then she escaped to where Emma and the Brotherhood waited. "Proud of you, Mom." Emma's voice was thick with emotion. "So incredibly proud." "I'm proud of you too, baby. You've been so strong through all of this." "I learned from the best." They drove home together. Not to the small apartment anymore. The donations and support had allowed Sarah to move into a better place. 2 bedrooms, working elevator, a neighborhood where Emma could walk safely at night. Sarah's phone buzzed constantly with messages. Congratulations, interview requests, speaking invitations. She ignored most of them, but one made her stop. Text from Ethan Holloway. "Congratulations on the law. You changed my life. I hope someday I can change someone else's the way you changed mine." She showed Emma. "Are you going to respond? Should I? I don't know. Do you believe he's actually changed?" Sarah thought about the young man who'd slapped her 6 months ago, about his guilty plea, his apology. The reports she'd heard through Bradford about Ethan volunteering at homeless shelters and food banks, completing his community service early and asking for more hours. She typed back, "Keep doing the work. Actions speak louder than apologies." His response was immediate, "I will. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be human." Emma read over her shoulder. "That's growth. Maybe we'll see if it lasts." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Too much adrenaline. Too many thoughts racing through her mind. She got up, made tea, sat at her kitchen table, looking at Emma's room where her daughter slept with a heart that beat strong and steady. Her phone rang. Late. Nearly midnight. Chains. "Sorry to call so late. Figured you might be awake." "I am." "What's up?" "Just got word. 3 more states are introducing versions of the Sarah Chen Law. Texas, New York, Oregon. Your story's spreading. Creating change in places you've never even been." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "That's impossible." "It's real. Service workers all over the country are hearing what happened to you, hearing that you stood up, that you won, and they're demanding the same protections." Chain's voice was warm, proud. "You started something big, Sarah, bigger than you know. I just wanted him to apologize. And look what that turned into. A law, a foundation, a movement." Chains paused. "My mother would have loved to see this, would have loved knowing that her death wasn't meaningless, that someone finally stood up and made things change. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you, would have recognized the same strength in you that she had." Chains cleared his throat. "Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. Foundation launch event. You ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be." The foundation launch happened at Lou's Steakhouse. Of course it did. Where else would they celebrate? The place was packed. Service workers from across the state. Lawyers who'd signed on to help. Donors. Supporters. Media covering the event like it was a presidential announcement. Chains stood at the microphone looking uncomfortable in a button-down shirt he'd clearly bought just for this occasion. "Most of you know me as Chains, president of the Hells Angels Charter, guy who rides a Harley and looks like he'd steal your wallet." People laughed. But what you might not know is that my mother was a service worker, waitress, worked herself to death serving people who barely saw her as human. And when Sarah Chen got slapped in this very restaurant 6 months ago, I saw my mother. Saw every woman who's been disrespected, every person who's been told their dignity doesn't matter. He gestured to Sarah. Sarah could have taken the money, could have stayed quiet, could have let fear win, but she didn't. She stood up. And because of her courage, we're launching this foundation to make sure no other service worker has to fight alone. Applause erupted. Sarah stood, walked to the microphone, looked at the faces watching her. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who got pushed too far and pushed back. But if my story helps even one person stand up for themselves, if this foundation supports even one worker facing harassment, if the Sarah Chen law protects even one person from abuse, then everything I went through was worth it. More applause. Cheers. People wiping tears. The waitress who brings your coffee. The cashier who rings up your groceries. The janitor who cleans your office. They're human beings. They deserve respect. They deserve dignity. They deserve protection. Sarah's voice grew stronger. And if anyone tries to tell you different, you remind them about the day a waitress stood up to a billionaire. And won. The room exploded. After the speeches, after the presentations, after the media left, Sarah found herself at table 12, the Brotherhood's table, the place where everything had changed. Lou had installed a plaque. She'd seen it before, but it hit different now. Table 12, where the Hells Angels stood up for dignity, where Sarah Chen refused to stay down, where courage became contagious, reserved for those who remember that everyone deserves respect. Emma sat beside her. You okay, Mom? Yeah. Just thinking about how fast everything changed. 6 months ago I was scared and broke and desperate, and now you're a symbol, a legend, the woman who took down a billionaire. I don't feel legendary. I feel exhausted. Sarah laughed. But good exhausted. Accomplished exhausted. Chains appeared with coffee, set it down without asking, black for himself, cream for Sarah. Some things didn't change. You know what happens next, he asked. What? Book deals, movie offers, speaking tours. Your story's too big to stay local. Everyone's going to want a piece of it. Sarah groaned. I don't want any of that. I just want to go back to work, to normal. Normal's gone. You killed normal when you refused to back down. Chain smiled. But that's okay. Normal was overrated anyway. What am I supposed to do with all this attention? Use it. Channel it. Turn it into something that matters. Chains leaned forward. You've got a platform now. A voice people want to hear. You can either hide from it, or you can use it to create more change. Your choice. Emma nodded. He's right, Mom. You could do so much good. Sarah looked at her daughter. At this incredible young woman who'd been through hell and came out stronger. Who'd watched her mother fight and learned what real strength looked like. Okay, I'll do it. The speaking tours, the interviews, whatever it takes to make sure this keeps spreading. That's my girl. Chains raised his coffee cup to Sarah Chen, the waitress who changed the world. They drank. 3 months later, Sarah stood on a stage in Austin, Texas, watching the governor sign their version of the Sarah Chen law. She'd testified, shared her story, helped push it through. A month after that, she was in New York doing the same thing. Then Oregon, then Michigan, then Florida. Each state that passed the law felt like another piece of her pain transforming into purpose. Another life potentially saved, another service worker protected. Emma traveled with her sometimes, stayed with Lou other times, thrived either way. Her heart was strong now, perfect. Dr. Morrison called it a medical miracle. Sarah called it answered prayers and good surgeons, and the stubbornness of a 15-year-old who refused to die. The foundation grew faster than anyone anticipated. Within 6 months, they'd helped 47 service workers facing assault or harassment cases, provided legal support, financial assistance, counseling, everything Sarah had wished for when she'd been fighting alone. Chains called every week, updated her on foundation progress, shared stories of lives changed, people helped, justice served. You created something beautiful, he told her during one call. Something that's going to outlive all of us. We created it. You and the Brotherhood. Lou, Bradford, everyone who stood up. Maybe. But you were the spark. Never forget that. A year after the slap, Sarah received a letter. Prison stationery. Richard Holloway's name in the return address. She almost threw it away. Almost. But curiosity won. Mrs. Chen. I'm writing this from federal prison where I'm serving year 2 of an 8-year sentence. I've had a lot of time to think about my choices, about the man I became, about the values I taught my son. You were right about everything. Money didn't fix my problems. It created them. It made me believe I was above consequences, above basic human decency. And when Ethan hit you, my first instinct wasn't to teach him right from wrong. It was to protect him from accountability. I destroyed my own life trying to protect him from his mistakes. Lost my company, my reputation, my freedom. And the cruel irony is that losing everything taught me what having everything never could. That character matters more than wealth. That dignity can't be bought. That the people who serve us deserve our respect, not our contempt. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that your courage changed 2 lives. Ethan's and mine. He's in college now studying social work, volunteering with homeless veterans, becoming someone I'm actually proud of. And I'm in here learning what it means to be powerless, to be invisible, to be treated like I don't matter. It's the best education I've ever received. Thank you for standing up, for refusing to be broken, for teaching my son and me that some things matter more than money. Richard Holloway. Sarah read it twice, then showed Emma. Do you believe him? I don't know, but I hope it's true. Hope he really is learning. Hope this wasn't all for nothing. It wasn't for nothing, Mom. Look at everything that's happened. The law, the foundation, all the people you've helped. That's not nothing. That's everything. Sarah folded the letter, put it in a drawer. Maybe someday she'd respond. Maybe not. Either way, his redemption wasn't her responsibility. She'd done her part, stood up, fought back, created change. What happened next was up to him. 2 years after the slap, 18 states had passed versions of the Sarah Chen law. The foundation had helped over 300 service workers. Sarah had written a book not for fame, but because Bradford convinced her the story needed to be told in full, that it could help others. The book became a bestseller, not because of marketing or publicity, because it resonated. Because service workers across America saw themselves in Sarah's struggle. Because people were tired of watching the powerful escape consequences while the vulnerable suffered in silence. Emma graduated high school with honors, got accepted to Stanford, the same school Ethan had been supposed to attend before his assault conviction made that impossible. She was studying pre-med, wanted to be a cardiac surgeon, wanted to save lives the way Dr. Morrison had saved hers. Sarah stood at her daughter's graduation, watching her walk across the stage, and felt pride so intense it hurt. We made it, she whispered. Against everything, we made it. Lou was beside her, crying openly. That's our girl. That's my miracle. Chains and the Brotherhood attended too, all 7 of them in leather vests, sitting in the parent section like they belonged there. Because they did. They were family now. The brothers who'd stood up when it mattered, who'd refused to let violence go unchallenged. After the ceremony, Emma found Sarah in the crowd. Mom, I got something for you. She handed her a letter. Acceptance to a nursing program, full scholarship, starting in the fall. Emma, what is this? You've been talking about nursing school since I was little, about wanting to help people the way Dr. Morrison helped me. So I applied for you, used some of the foundation money to cover the application fees, and you got in, Mom. Full ride. You can finally do what you've always wanted. Sarah couldn't speak, could only hold her daughter and cry and feel the weight of every impossible thing suddenly becoming possible. You did this for me. You fought a billionaire for me. This is the least I can do. Lou was grinning. I'll work around your class schedule. You can keep your job. Stay part of the family. I'm not going anywhere. This is home. 3 years after the slap, Sarah walked across a stage in a cap and gown receiving her nursing degree. Emma was in the audience. Lou, the Brotherhood, Bradford, Rodriguez, Dr. Morrison. Everyone who'd been part of her journey gathered to watch her complete this final transformation. From waitress to activist to nurse. From victim to survivor to champion. From broken to healing to whole. The foundation had expanded nationally. 26 states with Sarah Chen laws now. Over 1,000 workers helped. Millions of dollars raised. A movement that had started with one slap in a small steakhouse, spreading across the country like wildfire. Sarah took her first nursing job at St. Catherine's Hospital, the same place where Emma had nearly died, where Dr. Morrison had saved her life, where everything had changed. She worked in the cardiac unit, helped patients facing the same fear Emma had faced, held their hands, reminded them they weren't alone, that miracles happened, that courage mattered. And every day when she put on her scrubs and walked through those hospital doors, she remembered the waitress she'd been, the woman who'd been slapped for bringing the wrong temperature steak, the mother who'd almost lost everything, and she was grateful, not for the pain, but for what the pain had taught her, that standing up mattered, that dignity couldn't be bought or sold, that one person refusing to back down could change the world. 5 years after the slap, Sarah received an invitation to the White House, a ceremony honoring everyday heroes who'd created extraordinary change. She almost declined too much, too public, too overwhelming. Emma convinced her to go. Mom, you've spent 5 years helping other people tell their stories. Let someone honor yours for once. So she went, stood in the White House with other activists and advocates and ordinary people who'd done extraordinary things, received a medal, shook hands with the president, gave a speech about dignity and service workers and the power of refusing to stay silent. And when she returned home to her apartment, nicer now but still humble, she put the medal in a drawer, next to Richard Holloway's letter, next to Emma's graduation photo, next to all the tangible reminders that her life had meaning beyond what she'd ever imagined. The Brotherhood threw a party at Lou's. Of course they did. Table 12 was waiting, coffee already poured, cream on the side. To Sarah Chen. Chains raised his cup. The woman who taught us that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and standing up anyway. Everyone drank. Sarah looked around the table, at the people who'd become her family, at the place where her life had shattered and rebuilt stronger, at the evidence that pain could transform into purpose if you refused to let it break you. Thank you, she said quietly, all of you, for standing up, for standing with me, for teaching me that I was never as alone as I felt. That's what family does, Lou said. We show up, we fight, we protect our own. Emma appeared at Sarah's shoulder, 20 years old now, stunning, strong, everything Sarah had raised her to be. Mom, there's someone here to see you. Sarah turned. Ethan Holloway stood in the doorway, 23 now, different from the arrogant teenager who'd walked in 5 years ago. Older, humbler, wearing the face of someone who'd learned hard lessons and come out better. The restaurant went quiet. Sarah stood, walked over slowly. Ethan? Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry to just show up. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I'm graduating college next week and I wanted... He paused, collected himself. I wanted you to know that everything I've become, every good thing in my life, now it started the day you refused to let me off easy, the day you stood up and showed me what real strength looked like. What are you doing with your degree? Social work, working with at-risk youth, kids who are heading down the path I was on, trying to show them there's another way. He smiled, sad but genuine. I'll never be able to undo what I did to you, but I can try to make sure other kids don't make the same mistakes. Sarah studied him, looked for the arrogance, the entitlement, the cruelty she'd seen 5 years ago. It was gone, replaced by something that looked like authentic remorse and hard-won growth. I'm proud of you, Ethan, for doing the work, for changing. She extended her hand. Keep going, keep growing, keep helping others. He shook her hand. His grip was gentle, respectful. Thank you, Mrs. Chen, for everything. He left. The restaurant stayed quiet for a moment. Then Chen spoke. That took courage, forgiving him. I didn't forgive him, not completely, but I acknowledged his growth. There's a difference. Sarah returned to table 12. People can change, but only if we give them space to become better while still holding them accountable for who they were. Wise words, Chen smiled. Your mother would be proud, Emma. Raised a philosopher. Emma laughed. I raised myself. Mom just showed me what strength looked like. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep again. But not from anxiety this time. From contentment. From the strange peace that comes from knowing you've done something that mattered. That your pain served a purpose. That your courage created ripples you'll never fully see. She opened her laptop, started writing. Not a book this time, just thoughts, reflections. A letter to her younger self. Dear Sarah, 5 years ago, you got slapped. And you thought it was the end of everything. Your dignity, your safety, your belief that the world was fair. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. You stood up. You refused to be bought. You fought when fighting seemed impossible. And because of that choice, 18 states passed laws protecting people like you. Thousands of workers got help they desperately needed. And 2 men, a father and son who thought money made them untouchable, learned that consequences are real. You'll always carry the scar on your cheek. The memory of that slap. The fear that came with standing up to power. But you'll also carry the knowledge that you mattered, that your voice created change, that your courage inspired others to find their own. Emma's healthy. You're a nurse. The foundation is thriving. The law bears your name, and the world is marginally better because you refuse to stay silent. That's not nothing. That's everything. Be proud. You earned it. Love, Sarah. She closed the laptop, went to check on Emma even though her daughter was 20 and perfectly capable of taking care of herself. Force of habit. Mother's instinct. Emma was asleep in her room, heart monitor on the nightstand. She still checked her vitals obsessively, trauma from the surgery years ago, but the numbers were perfect. Strong. Steady. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, whispered words Emma couldn't hear. You're my reason, my strength, my everything. I love you more than you'll ever know. She returned to her own room, climbed into bed, and for the first time in 5 years, she slept without nightmares, without fear, without the weight of wondering if she'd made the right choices. She had, every single one. The next morning, Sarah woke to her phone buzzing. Text from Chen's turn on the news. She did. Breaking news. Congress introducing federal legislation. The Sarah Chen Protection Act. Nationwide protections for service workers. Mandatory prosecution for assault. Employer retaliation penalties. Everything her state law had accomplished expanded to cover the entire country. Sarah sat on her bed watching politicians debate, watching service workers testify, watching her story, her pain, her courage, her refusal to be broken transform into national policy. Emma appeared in her doorway. Mom, are you seeing this? I'm seeing it. They're using your name, your story. You're going to be in history books. Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. I just wanted him to apologize. And look what that turned into. Emma climbed into bed beside her, rested her head on Sarah's shoulder, the way she'd done when she was little. You changed the world, Mom. Actually changed it. We changed it. You and me and Chains and Lou and everyone who stood up. It was never just me. Maybe. But you were the spark. You were the one who refused to let fear win." They sat together watching history unfold on the screen. Watching Sarah's name become synonymous with justice and dignity and the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The federal Sarah Chen Protection Act passed 6 months later by a bipartisan majority. The president signed it into law in a ceremony Sarah attended with Emma and the Brotherhood and Lou and everyone who'd been part of the journey. Today, the president said, "We recognize that service workers are the backbone of our economy. The people who show up every day with dignity and professionalism, despite facing disrespect and harassment. And because of Sarah Chen's courage in standing up to abuse, we're ensuring that they have the protection they deserve." Applause filled the room. Sarah stood when asked, waved, felt the weight of millions of eyes watching, millions of service workers who'd finally been seen, been valued, been protected. And she thought about the woman she'd been 5 years ago. Scared, broke, desperate, getting slapped by a spoiled teenager and thinking her life was over. That woman would never have believed this was possible, but it was. And standing there in that moment, Sarah Chen understood something fundamental about courage and change, and the power of refusing to accept that things will always be the way they've been. One person can make a difference. One voice can start a movement. One waitress standing up to a billionaire can change the world. Not because she was special, not because she was fearless, but because when the moment came, when violence and injustice showed their face and demanded silence, she chose to stand anyway. She chose dignity over dollars, justice over peace, truth over comfort. And that choice rippled outward in ways she never imagined, touched lives she'd never meet, created protection for people she'd never know, built a legacy that would outlive her and everyone she loved, because courage is contagious. And sometimes, all it takes is one person refusing to back down to show others that standing up is possible. Sarah Chen was that person. The waitress who wouldn't stay silent. The mother who fought a billionaire. The survivor who transformed her pain into purpose and her trauma into triumph. And 5 years after the worst day of her life, standing in the White House, watching her name become law, Sarah finally understood that the slap hadn't destroyed her. It had revealed her, showed her and the world exactly how strong she'd always been. She just needed a reason to prove it. And Ethan Holloway had given her one. For that, in some twisted way, she was almost grateful. Not for the violence, never that, but for the opportunity to show herself and her daughter and every service worker watching that standing up matters. That dignity can't be taken, only surrendered. That justice is possible when people refuse to accept injustice. Sarah Chen stood up, and the world changed because of it. That's not a fairy tale. That's not fiction. That's the truth about what happens when courage meets circumstance and refuses to blink first. One woman, one moment, one choice. Everything changed.